My name is Laura Stotterman. I am the Dance and Visual Arts Consultant at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and I'm joined today by my coworker.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm a music and theater arts consultant, and we are in the Office of Academic Standards, and our section is led by Dr. Lori Major Carlin, a former theater teacher, and we're very lucky to have her. All right. Today, you are going to want to have a copy of these session materials. I believe Laura is going to drop this into the chat in just a second. And whether you are watching the recording or whether you are participating live with us, this is a great reflection guide. It's a note catcher. It's all of our links. It's everything. It'll even bring you back to this slide deck. And when you click on that link or scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a dark background screen with a preview of the document that you're going to copy. And you do need to click on the Use Template blue button up in the upper right-hand corner. Oops, I didn't actually mean to do it. There we go. Let's try again. Maybe it's going to do it every time. Hold on. There we go.
All right, so the purpose of our webinar series is to value the common framework for the ways that it strengthens arts education and the educator's ability to plan, advocate, and execute instruction. Now, this specific webinar is on the Connect strand, right? And so here our mission is to prepare you to implement the Connect strand of the 2024 Arts Education Standards course of study in dance, music, theater, and visual arts.
I'm going to go ahead and pause just for a second and change the permissions. I apologize for having that wrong. It's funny, you would think we'd have it all figured out since we're doing this in a whole month later than we intended. So I was just trying to acknowledge that, and it will be done in just a moment. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay. So our intended outcomes today are for you all to understand how the common framework and vertical alignment builds continuity within and between the disciplines. We want to interpret objectives through the standard objective relationship and understand the essential questions and enduring understandings of the Connect standards and objectives. Together, we will unpack an example objective. This professional development webinar addresses Standard 3A, in which teachers know the content they teach and you are aligning your instruction with the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. So be sure that you are putting this on those self-evaluations. Our agenda is as follows. We're going to start with our drill down document and bringing you into the framework and the Connect standards. And then we'll start looking at how we unpack those objectives together. We'll share multiple resources that we have built and are continuing to build to support you as you begin teaching these standards next year. And then we'll end with our closing to include any Q&A. So if you have any questions while we are presenting, please go ahead and throw them into the chat and we will make sure that we try to address them before the time ends.
All right. So before we dive in, we kind of wanted to connect, pun intended, with the things that you have already been doing in your classroom. So when you think about the the contextual relevancy or the connect sort of strands that you've been teaching in the past under the essential standards, which of these do you typically emphasize in your classroom? And you can go ahead and just type the letter into the chat. We unfortunately couldn't get the poll to work today, so we are going to just flood the chat. Is it that you connect with other disciplines or content areas the most? If that's so, go ahead and write A into the chat. If it's history, events, time periods, I 100% admit this was my weakest area as a teacher. You can type B. If you are great at connecting with personal, local, state, or national or global cultures, then that's C. If you're really great at connecting with the professional arts world that connects to your discipline, that's D. Or if you're really great at connecting with college and career paths, the way that those like skills develop us at, regardless of our path or what our college and career paths are within our arts education field, you can go ahead and hit E. So we'll give just a few minutes to look at that.
Seeing a lot of A's coming in, B's and C's. I
Yeah.
think it is important that we, acknowledge where our strengths are, but then also to see these are areas where perhaps we can continue to grow our practice.
Well, I love the fact that we really have A, B, C, and D shown in the field here. That means that we, as a collaborative group, could learn a lot from one another. Woohoo! We finally got an E. All right, Stephanie, we're coming to you for all of the expertise. All
That
right,
was definitely mine. I focused a lot as a high school director into the professional fields and the career paths for my students. That was one of my favorite things to teach them, definitely.
wonderful. Great. Well, beginning with knowing what our strengths already are is always a great thing. So keep that in mind that we're not starting from scratch. We know these things. We've been teaching these things. We're just expanding. All right, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of recap where we've been in the framework webinar and continue on in through Connect. And just a reminder, if you've missed that or any other webinar in this series, you can find them in the PD catalog.
So we want to start with remembering that we aligned our new standards and the four artistic processes with the National Coalition for Arts Standards. And many states have already done this work and aligned their standards with this as well. And specifically, with our framework, we wanted to make sure that all four disciplines were falling under the same core process strands of connect, create, present, and respond. And so you can see the boxes down below. We took the connecting from dance, the contextual relevancy from both, I believe that one was music and visual arts, and then culture from theater, and saw that these standards all aligned with what we were trying to say in the new connect strand. The next slide. So our common framework, again, as an example, you can go back and watch this webinar, but you see how it's laid out on this document where the headings show you the discipline, the standard verbs. You see that the pink highlights the differences where the alignment in the words the standards may be slightly different, but for the most part, again, we are aligned with all four disciplines. Next. Digging into that connect strand and that artistic process, right? We see that we have our relate and our explore. These are the two standards that we really focus all of our objectives around in this artistic process. So we're going to dig in. Let's go.
Okay, so just a reminder that this drill down document was utilized by the writing team, and we've shared it with everybody again. And so this is, yeah, we're gonna drill down a little bit further into Connect.
Okay, so when we're seeing again our strand, as we connect, we want our students to relate these artistic ideas and works to past, present, and future societies and cultures. We understand that the first standard is looking at that relationship in which we take these ideas and works and relate them with the personal, societal, cultural, and historical and daily life contexts. And then the second standard in Connect is that we are exploring advancements in the field. And you'll see that each standard has two objectives. And so in the first standard of relate, we're going to deepen the understanding of artistic ideas by relating them to the historical, societal, cultural, and daily life contexts. And in the second through line, we're going to look at that co-curricular integration. Within Explore, we're going to first look at those post-secondary opportunities and careers of professionals, and then we're going to explore those innovative methods and tools and technologies that have really helped us to advance our art form. So let's dig in a little bit more.
All right. So as Laura said, the first through line is to connect a student's art form to the rest of the world. And really what we want here is students to understand that an artist's perception of events, cultures, and society shape the creation of movements, tonalities, stories, environments, techniques, styles, and genres, each worthy of study, expression, and celebration. Please note that anytime you see the bold text in the next few slides, those might be variations on these enduring understandings from discipline to discipline so that they are more appropriate to that discipline. For example, tonalities may be more appropriate for music than it is for dance. So, what this actually looks like in the classroom is probably really similar to the sort of work that you've done underneath the essential standards. It's for students to explore and be exposed to a variety of styles, genres, and artists from local, state, national, and global communities, as well as examining how an art form has developed across time. Please do not be overwhelmed. They are not doing all of those things in every grade level. If you've had time to look at the objectives directly, you've seen that, for example, in second grade, we look at American art. In third grade, we look at local. In fourth, we look at North Carolina, which we do again in eighth. And then in fifth grade, we look at national United States music. And so we kind of engage in this layered approach the entire way through. If we look at the second through line, we see this co-curricular integration. And this is where we really want students to come away with the understanding that art skills are transferable and they enhance performance and adaptability across diverse settings and disciplines. We ask students to engage in examining art skills and practices that extend into other disciplines, and we look at non-art skills and practices and knowledge from beyond the arts classroom and see how we can add them into our arts practice. So we're really looking at it in both directions. In the classroom, students are identifying how two disciplines might relate to one another within the arts, beyond the arts, and applying those sorts of skills cross-disciplinarily. Then we actually have a third set of a third objectives for music and dance. But this is an extension of the co-curricular integration. In both dance and in vocal and instrumental music, which you might hear me slip into calling VIM, because vocal and instrumental music is a long thing to say over and over, students learn that cultivating healthy physical and psychological habits is imperative to being successful and fulfilled in their art form. This means that students are examining how they can identify, prevent, and manage physical and psychological health issues explored and encountered by performers. Now, we're talking here about performance anxiety. We're talking about anatomical alignment. We're talking about not overtaxing the body. What are some healthy habits that we can encourage versus not healthy habits? We should not be sharing reeds. We should not be sharing mouthpieces. This is the sort of topic that we're talking about here. We are not asking any sort of teacher to engage in something more deep than that, and we'll let the mental health professionals handle anything beyond what is within the scope of performance anxiety and healthy habits. Within general music, students are taking a look at the way that musical elements are intentionally combined to evoke emotionally driven responses from the listener. So we know that music is used to evoke emotion or nostalgia or some sort of physical response, taking you back. And the media does this, entertainment companies from any sort of entertainment does this. And we also use specific musical cues within our religious and national traditions and celebrations as well. So that's what students in general music are looking at in this third through line. All right, Laura, take us in to
All
explore.
right, so that takes us into the second standard of our Connect strand, which is to explore those advancements in the field. And the first through line is looking at these post-secondary opportunities and careers. And so our enduring understanding that what we want our students to learn and get from this through line is all of the different roles and skills and behaviors of an artist that are necessary for success, not just in our art professions, but also we want to acknowledge that many of our students are going to take what their experiences are building for them in our arts classes and transfer those skills into other career fields. And so we want that to be a very strong message that the arts teaches you so much more than just your art form, but how to be successful no matter what career path you follow. And so we're looking here at these key knowledge and skills, understanding first how our art form is created and produced. What are the different responsibilities that go into putting on a production or hanging a gallery show, right? So all of the different ways in which there are multiple roles and individuals involved in a production or presentation of some sort, to then understand what those career roles may be that you could follow. And then understanding those durable skills and the technical skills. How can Portrait of a Graduate with adaptability and communication, collaboration, right, learner's mindset, all the things that the arts are teaching, how can they transfer into other disciplines? The creative design process is one that we see come up a lot in our objectives, in having students understand how that design process is applied in multiple other ways in different disciplines. And so this again is ways in which we are exploring our career paths. Next. In the second strand, we are now looking at the innovative methods, tools, and technologies that are used by artists in the professional industry. And so our enduring understanding is to see how our art has advanced and dependent on our artists who are using new and applied ways in doing things, and also the technology that has helped to advance our work. And so we're looking at, again, the impact that this has all had, and analyzing the opportunities that are now have come to us as artists because of the advancements that have been made. Next. So reflection time. What do you notice about the content of the Connect objectives, especially in relationship to where your objectives were before in your cultural, contextual relevancy, dance connect, or theater cultural essential strands? What similarities are you seeing? What connection are you making of the content? And so take a moment, you can throw a few ideas in the chat, but we, I believe, are going to move on. If you are completing your reflection journal for CEU credits, this is where you will fill in this information.
Feel free to share in the chat as well if you have something that you're burning to share.
Yes, we see professional and career-oriented skills and approaches that relate to the real world. Again, showing our students the value of arts education in the multiple ways in which it helps develop them as individuals.
Or
Okay. All right, so Brandon, you're going to take us into unpacking the objectives. We have decided that each of our webinars is going to have this little mini lesson attached to it. So this is the mini lesson for this one.
All right. So in the 2010 Essential Standards, the code came first, representing the grade, the strand, the standard, and the objective in this alphanumeric code. And following that came the standard or the objective in what's called SVO form, and that's subject, verb, object, which I think is funny because we actually never use subject in our writing. They're just verb objects. The subject is understood by everyone just to be the student. So the student will is kind of the or will be able to is that that stem that we always use. So after that comes the accessible verb, and the rest is the assessment content. And so by the end of instruction, be it a lesson, a unit, or a year-long investigation, the student should be able to demonstrate that they can verb the object. In this case, what's shown here, kindergarten students should be able to illustrate, which in this case means demonstrate, not draw, a steady beat. If we look at the new standards, the 2024 standard course of study, it follows the same kind of SVO structure, the same kind of numeric code. This crosswalk objective to the previous essential standard is shown, and this less specific, the less specific verb illustrate is replaced here with the less problematic verb perform. And there are now conditions on this demonstration. So kindergarten students now need to demonstrate a steady beat on their own and when singing or playing unison music. That is not what I have. I apologize.
That's not what you have.
Did I just
I
totally?
think you got it.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
It's
That was
okay.
wrong. My notes were wrong. Okay, let's go back for a second. That was a great example, but that was for perform. So we're going to look here at connect, using music to illustrate people or how people express themselves differently. So using music is what we're actually going to have here to illustrate how people express themselves differently. So here we have identified the similarities and differences of music represents diverse global cultures and communities. Sorry. So let's take a look at this a little bit more deeply. We want to share that the standard and the objective work together. So here we see the same objective from the previous slide, and it's shown in blue, and its standard, which is shown in that lovely purpley pink wine color. So we know that the standards are the same for every single grade level, but we want to show you how they are one continuous, albeit run-on sentence. So together, the concept in kindergarten is to have students relate musical ideas and works with personal, societal, cultural, historical, and daily life contexts, including diverse and marginalized groups by or when they identify the similarities and differences of music representing diverse global communities. So it's all one complete thought. It's going from the less specific to the more specific. And I really, truly apologize for starting with the wrong thing. But luckily, we're going to go through 3 more examples. I think Laura's up next.
Yeah, I am. All right, so here we're looking at dance. This is the Advanced Connect 1 standard, which is to relate the ideas and works with personal, societal, cultural, historical, and daily life contexts, including diverse and marginalized groups. We come into the objective, which is 1.2, to analyze the interdisciplinary connections inherent in dance creation and performance and their relevance across dance fields. So again, we are reading the standard and the objective as one continual sentence. So it would then read, the student will be able to, we're taking the standard, relate dance ideas and works with personal, societal, cultural, historical, and daily life contexts, including diverse and marginalized groups, when they, or by analyzing, right, the interdisciplinary connections inherent in dance creation and performance and their relevance across different fields.
If you were like me, teaching the essential standards, I knew that all of those standards were exactly the same, so I kind of didn't pay any attention to them, and I only focused on the objectives. And that's probably a dangerous thing to admit on a recording, but that's the way I made sure that my students progressed. I never really hearkened back though to that standard and thought about it as the continuous through line. And we're finding that that's true across most people in this state who are teaching the standards. So that's why we really want to emphasize this. We're going to take a look at a middle school example. Now we're into CN2, which, as a reminder, is exploring advancements in the field of theater arts. And if we have the objective from 8CN 2.1, we are specifically looking at explaining how theatrical skills characteristics, and behaviors contribute to success in a broad range of careers. So I know if we were sitting in a room, I'd have you call out the whole thing, but I'll let you say it out loud even though you're on mute. Come on, I don't see your mouths moving. There we go. Yeah, this one's pretty, luckily, much less of a mouthful. So we have the student will be able to explore advancements in the field of theater arts when they are explaining how theater skills, characteristics, and behaviors contribute to the success in a broad range of careers. Perfect. Great. So let's look at CN 2.2.
All right, so here, one more example. We're coming into visual arts now. This is the fifth grade Connect example, in which the standard reads to explore advancements in the field of visual arts. Again, that would change. It would be musical, or music or dance, right, depending on the discipline, but everyone has the same standard. The objective is 2.2 to give examples of visual artworks or artists that were innovative for their time. So when we're reading it collectively, our full concept is that the student will be able to explore advancements in the fields of visual arts when they give examples of visual artworks or artists that were innovative for their time.
I want to give a mad shout out for Jared. He's doing a great job. All right.
Let's make sure before we move on, again, our framework identified it, but we don't have it here, but our proficient level is changing to accomplished. So if you see a C, we no longer have the P, just to make sure that we remember to remind you that. Okay, so reflection. As Brandon mentioned, maybe this was how you read the standards in the past, but maybe not. So is this new information for you to look at it collectively, or were you focused more primarily on just the standard or just the objectives? And what is the implication that we're sharing now in this way of reading the standards and objectives? So again, if you're filling out your reflection journal, please take a minute to do this. Otherwise, you can also throw it in the chat so we can hear some of your responses.
Yeah, I know some people were required to teach both the standard and the objectives, like the standard was an extra objective. Um,
Mm.
but that's super difficult in the way that we have them because the kindergarten standard is exactly the same as the eighth grade standard. So it's not really possible. So yeah, it's great. Seeing some, it forces you to look at both the immediate goal and the long-term goal. That's, I think, you hit the nail on the head. It's how are we developing this whole through line here by one little chunk at a time. That's great. Wonderful. All right.
Yes, the through lines. So let's go ahead. We're going to unpack an objective. Brandon is going to take us into this part.
All right. So, in an effort to be as equitable as possible and as helpful as possible, even though we're doing this all at once, we're going to lean in on what we have been celebrating in this entire process and choose an objective that is essentially the same across all four disciplines. You can see here that intermediate CN 1.2 is pretty much the same. We're applying skills and knowledge gained from other content areas or personal experiences to solve artistic problems. We will always use the word artistic or art form to kind of stand in for the way that these objectives change from one art form to the next. Just a side note, if you're looking for general music here, since we chose an intermediate objective, general music only has beginning and accomplished standard courses of study. So we are just have these four instead. So let's go ahead and look at what would be included in the unpacking documents. So the first thing that you're going to see is actually the terminology from the glossary. It's really imperative to read and receive the objective in the same way with the intention that the standards writing team wrote it so that we can correctly unpack it and teach it. So in our in our glossary, we find that apply means to put into operation or effect, and that personal are those unique experiences and relationships that surround a single person and are influenced by personal life, family, habits, interest, and or preferences. So, yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward, but now we don't have any ambiguity whatsoever.
And in these resources that we are building for unpacking the standards, every objective will have the glossary included in the document. So when you're able to put your hands on this, it's actually published for you. You will be able to see without having to go to our glossaries, which do already exist. You can find them in our Arts Education Hub, but the glossary terms will be provided for you. We also, with each standard and objective, are giving you that essential question in ways in which we're looking at how does this develop the through line. Something again that is new to our framework this year is that every single objective develops from kindergarten through 12th grade. We did not have that in the 2010 standards through every objective, and so it's really beautiful to see that it scaffolds their learning. So we take a look at understanding how it develops the through line. Where did it come from in the past? What are the students currently mastering or learning? And then where do they take this information in the future? So here's an example in which this objective develops the through line because in the previous levels, students looked at how artistic creation and performance were supported by other content areas. And now they are applying skills from other content areas to their art creation. At the next level, students will be examining how artistic skills and processes are helpful in post-secondary settings. The enduring understanding is that, again, all students understand that art skills are transferable, enhancing performance and adaptability across diverse settings and disciplines. So this information will be provided to you for every single objective. Additionally, we will include what do students need to know and do. And so for the know, we're saying that students would need to know the steps of the creative design process for solving problems. But then we're also saying to be skilled at it, to show mastery, what is it that they must be able to show and give demonstration of, so that they're able to then use the creative design process and they are able to successfully brainstorm solutions in which they draw knowledge and skills from other content areas or personal experiences. Lastly, well, not lastly, we have a in the classroom thing, but also the evidence of mastery, we will be writing example assessments. Remember that we are not dictating the curriculum. That is up to a local area level decision. So this is just guidance as to what this could look like and how you measure mastery. And so again, the standards for applying skills and knowledge gained from other content areas or personal experiences to solve artistic challenges. One example could be that students are given an artistic challenge to solve in a project-based performance task. A rubric with criteria that describes their ability to draw on outside knowledge will be provided at the beginning of the task. After students identify a solution, they test it, assess the quality of the solution, and redesign or retest as necessary. Students will then write a reflection on how they drew inspiration for the solution from knowledge gained in other academic areas, personal life, and from solving similar problems in classroom settings. Students will be asked to compare their rubric self-evaluation with feedback from the teacher. So again, this is just an example of how this could look.
All right. So if you're sitting there going, oh my goodness, they've done everything for us. What do I actually need to do? This feels like they're being prescriptive. Please know that we're not. That, like Laura said, it is very much just trying to demystify what the standards writing team meant and make sure that we're all on the same path. So You don't have to use that assessment, and you don't have to use any sort of lesson examples or topics that also might be provided. We're exploring different ways to present information that's helpful, but not overly descriptive or cumbersome to everybody. You are the expert in your classroom. You know who you have in your classroom, you know what their backgrounds are, you know what schools they came from, meaning the feeder programs, you know how much art they have exposed in their lives from either the ability to have an art-rich town, or whether or not they are taking lots of lessons privately within your community. So we really are trusting you to make the best decisions for your students. We're just trying to make it a little easier to understand what we intended. So you would still have the ability, or we still expect all the teachers to write lesson objectives. We won't be getting to that kind of nitty gritty, right? Even the assessment example here was sort of the end of a unit assessment. Now, we're not saying that all the assessment examples are going to be at that level. They might be formative assessments. We're going to try to provide a variety of different types of assessments, but you are going to need to write your formative assessments if we write the summative, or the summative if we write the formative. You get to choose your classroom activities for how to support those lesson objectives. And you are definitely, or your county is going to map those learning objectives and activities on a calendar. We will not be providing any sort of pacing guide because that is curriculum and is up to the local education agency. So that was a lot. But we are curious to hear from you in the chat which of the previous sections, so whether it's having the glossary or the EQ explanation of how it develops the through line, having the enduring understanding, the knowledge, the skills, the assessment examples, the possible topics or the possible lesson ideas, what of those seems like it will be the most helpful to you as you are implementing the new 24 standards? And if you're watching this on the recording, you have a space in your reflection journal to write this as well. Citement for the knowledge and skills and assessments. Yeah, one of the things we've been talking about a lot is how can we help first year teachers and veteran teachers. So as a first year teacher, seeing the possible lesson ideas is most helpful. That's great. We also acknowledge that most of us in arts education do not teach a single grade level the way that might be more typical in non-arts content. As an elementary music teacher, I taught seven if you include pre-K, but 6 grade levels that had a standard course of study. So imagining how I was going to develop them across 6 years would have been really helpful. We've got another vote for the essential understanding. That's really great. Yep, we are using understanding by design framework to do our unpacking. So that was great that you recognize that. And yeah, excitement for the glossary as well. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that feedback.
Great. So let's take a look at some of the resources that we have already provided for you, and then those that we are continuing to build and where you can access everything. So the very first place is our AE Hub. And we love our beautiful buttons here. This is the QR code for it, but you can access it with our short links, go ncdpi.gov/AE-hub, Education Hub. You can find discipline-specific resources by clicking on any of those purplish buttons, but then also can find just all crosswalks, all unpacking documents, the other professional development catalogs, all the wonderful resources are housed right here. And every discipline has this. This is new this year for our agency. So if you are listening to this webinar and you want to find your science standards or your social studies standards, they have the exact same external implementation guides. Next. Our standard course of study is published, it is released. Again, it looks like this, that you see your standard text on the left side and then the strand on the top and definition underneath it of what it is that this strand is examining. And then each of the objectives are listed in those boxes to the right. Our glossaries, as somebody mentioned in the chat, they are already produced for you. We actually have 5 glossaries. The first glossary contains words that Brandon and I found were consistent across 2 or more of our disciplines. And so we wanted to make sure that those were housed somewhere where everybody was looking at them at the same time. But then we have pages that are very specific, and that those types of language, that disciplinary content language, is only seen in that particular discipline. And so we are encouraging you to make sure that you're looking at the holistic glossary and then flipping back into the later pages to find words within the discipline. And again, all of those glossary terms will also be included in our unpacking documents by objective. Next. Our vertical alignment, this is my favorite document. This shows the standard, the objectives from K through 12. And so you're seeing in one page view of how does it progress? Where is it starting? Where is it going? And those are already provided for you as well in the AE Hub. Something new that we created specifically even for this unpacking webinar is for you to take a look and see the horizontal alignment. Maybe we didn't mention before, but wherever you were seeing that pink highlighted text, those were the nuanced differences between the disciplines. And so we're showing here in this document how, if you can just maybe hold right there, go back and just hold somewhere, okay? You see that I don't know what I was asking to hold on, but anyway, you see that for the most part, like Vim and Dance in this screenshot have the exact same objective. And then we get into theater and visual arts, and those will be different. I was looking maybe for one. This was the 7th grade one, right? Dance and visual arts, exactly the same. Theater has some nuance, just a little bit, where they're pink highlighted, and music has the exact same one. So when you're looking at this, again, this is great for your PLCs when you are having an opportunity to sit at the table with other arts disciplines, really being able to examine and unpack these objectives together, because you're teaching the same goal, right? It's just going to look differently in how it's done, but the what is all going to be aligned.
I'm a true jazz musician, so I'm all about steel, steel, steel. So that's what I think about. Laura thinks about working together. I think, oh, I can steal an idea from the visual arts teacher and then just riff off of that instead of having to come up with my own idea. Or maybe we can work together, make it easier. All right, sorry.
Collaboration, Brandon. So again, please access that to help you dig deeper. We also have our crosswalks, and these will show you the 2024 standards and objectives. It does look a little different, so I do want to point out how you're reading this. The standard is left justified, and then those indentations are the objectives. And then in the second column, this is where you see the 2010 standards and objectives written the same way. And the strand and definition, of course, is there for you in the blue shaded or headers. And then we gave you a column where you can write notes. And so as you're looking at this, perhaps you're jotting down some of the ideas of the lesson plans you used to teach, or again, new ideas as you're reading through them, ways in which you have dialogue with one another as you begin to unpack these. So now that we have explored this Connect Strand together, what resources seem most valuable to you, the ones that we just discussed? And what resources do you still feel that you need in order to teach the objectives? So again, fill out your reflection journals for your CEU credits, but flood our chat with some of your responses.
I do want to clarify earlier the boxes that we showed you that had the essential question on the left and the enduring understanding in the middle, and then some key knowledge and skills. Those tables were a sneak peek into the unpacking documents that we are in the process of creating. And they are not yet released. They will be taken with us to regional trainings and we will be refining them. And you will all have an opportunity to weigh in on them as well, or at least that's the intention. So this is kind of as we're building the plane in the air, we are giving you a sneak peek.
Love that vertical alignment. Yes, glossaries, those unpacking documents with our understanding, enduring understandings, sample assessments. The horizontal alignment, love that. So you're able to really, again, see those connections across PLCs. Yay for the crosswalks. Again, you're already teaching so many of these, but some of the language may have changed slightly, but for the most part, there may be a new objective through line perhaps, but for the most part, we really did try to find the foundation of what you already know and what you're already doing with your students.
I saw someone say the language is much easier to understand with. And I will say one of the things that I really encourage, that we really encourage our standards writing team to do is geek out hard. We wanted to make sure that our writing teams were actually using the disciplinary language that we use in the real world when we are participating in our art form and not trying to translate it into something else. So we definitely did use verbs that we see in the psychomotor domain instead of Bloom's taxonomy when we're actually doing something. When the skill is technical and not cognitive, we purposefully left Bloom's taxonomy and went into a different taxonomy that was all about the doing of tasks. We can talk about that later in a different mini lesson, perhaps.
And really,
Wonderful.
somebody says, Alicia says, I really love the different alignment documents, the difference in structure, and the clear comparison of information. Again, I think it is so spectacular that we are bringing everybody to the same table for conversations.
I love the fact that it was our data review committee and our writing teams who were saying that the drill down document must be released to the field, and it is such an easy way to understand how the four different art forms, though different, really do celebrate the same sort of commonalities in process.
Mhm.
Yeah, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on. And that, I mean, was a complete fire hose of information, I'm sure. And so we encourage you to start thinking of any remaining questions you might have, but we want to share a little bit, step to the side and share a little bit more about how you can stay or continue to stay informed.
So here's our installation timeline. This is available for you that you can see the different unpacking resources when we intend on releasing them. These webinar series are on there. Again, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you have registered for our upcoming webinars, but also you can access these at any time. please share that information with your friends and colleagues that they should be coming into our PD catalog and listening so that they can stay informed. And then, as Brandon mentioned, we are so excited to come into the field starting in January. We will travel to each of the 8 regions and meet with your district arts education leader, as well as a small team of lead teachers that they have assembled to help push this and roll this out to the field for next year's implementation. If you are not receiving our listservs, now is the time to make sure you are signing up. I was so bad about this. I know as a teacher, I would get so busy and those bulletins would come out and I would just say, I'll check it later. And I never would, or it would go to my other inbox and I wouldn't even take time to look. But now that I'm building them and I know what content is in them, I can tell you it's so important. So please take a moment to make sure that you open them every month, look at the things that we are sharing with you so that you can stay in the know. I really do feel, again, being slightly new to this role at DPI, Brandon and I are trying our best to make connections with you, be there in support of your work. And this is just one of those ways that we are doing it.
Yeah, just to emphasize that, the vertical alignment doc, which is definitely Laura's and my favorite document, came from a request from one of our district arts ed leaders who just said, hey, you know what would be nice is if we could see it in this format. And we said, oh, that would be actually super easy based on all of the documentation formats that we have. Let's just throw it together for you really fast. And now it's become quickly one of the most popular documents that's being accessed. So it was not a brainchild of ours. It was communicating with the field that actually let us know that that was a huge need. And yeah, we kind of sat there and were like, oh, of course we should have done this. And we might have gotten there ourselves, but it definitely got out to the field quickly because of that collaborative spirit. So we have about 4 minutes that we would love to dedicate to just hearing your questions and providing answers for you. So if you can um, go ahead and put any of the questions that you have in the chat. I'm not sure if it's possible to raise your hand with the settings that we have, but we could explore that as well. And just let us know if you have a question, and we'll be happy to attempt to answer it as best we can. So far, we've got lots of questions about the reflection journal. The reflection journal was available on the 3rd and 4th slides, and Laura has dropped it into the chat one more time. And whenever we put it in the arts PD catalog, there are always 3 kind of links underneath each session. One is for the recording on YouTube, the next one is for the slide deck, and the third one is the reflection journal. And in just a moment, we'll talk about how to submit those.
So any other questions that are circulating in your heads right now as we have taken our first dive into the first artistic process of Connect?
Laura, I think this secretly means that we've done an amazing job and we've over communicated.
I was just about to say, Brandon and I have to keep circling back. Like, there are people that haven't heard this before. We have to make sure, sometimes we get ahead of ourselves because we have been speaking this for over a year now. So I hope that we are being clear. We are not forgetting to tell you things. But that's what we love, your questions, because if you have a question, chances are there is somebody else listening that had the same question. So you can never over communicate is what has been shared in the chat. So please don't be shy in asking us any questions that you have.
All right. Well, if you are feeling shy and you want to ask us questions at the very end after we stop the recording, that's fine too. So we're going to go ahead and do our optimistic closure here. We would like you to come up with something you'd like to keep doing as we transition from the contextual relevancy, connecting, and culture strands into connect strand, what would you like to stop doing, and what is something you would like to start doing? And in your reflection journal, you can answer all three of those. But if you'd like to just share one of them in the chat, we'd love to uh, have you share that with us. Keep giving you all the links to all the documents. Yeah, absolutely. Everything goes up into the hub. I think it was yesterday, Laura and I added all of those horizontal documents into the hub underneath the unpacking button. Continue to include interdisciplinary and across the curriculum teaching. Absolutely. The hub is amazing. That's so good to hear. We will pass that information on to the rest of our Office of Academic Standards. Great. Thank you for sharing your keep, stop, start with us. We'll go ahead and continue on.
All right, as I said earlier, please make sure you are joining and sharing the fact that we have some 3 more webinars coming up, right? And so I dropped the registration link into the chat. It is Deeper Look. And our next one is coming up very soon, Thursday, November 7th, and we will take a deeper dive into the Create strand and look at those objectives. And then in December, we jump into Present. And then finally in January with our 4th artistic process of Respond. So make sure you are listening and joining us. We look forward to having you with us. And again, you're earning CEU credits. So we love professional development in our content areas. The next one is to fill out that CEU survey. And this is how you will receive your credit for listening today and where you have the opportunity to then upload your reflection journal.
And again, your reflection journal is a Google Doc. So if you click that big blue button that says share, you can get a link to your Google Doc, or you can just copy the URL from the very top as long as your share settings are for anyone. And you can drop that into the appropriate cell in the survey here. That's how you share your reflection journal.
All right, and thank you again for joining us, for being here, and for helping to have discussions with your colleagues and even students and parents about what these new standards are going to look like and the excitement that we have around all the great ways that it is going to continue to shape our work and really provide the best education for our students. You can email us at any time. We're happy to connect with you, here to support you. So thank you very much.